shrunuyama devaha Padram pasyemakshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangai stushtvagam sastanubhihi Vyasema devahitayadayuhu. May we hear with our ears what is auspicious. May we see with our eyes what is auspicious. May we enjoy with strong limbs and bodies the life allotted to us. Om, peace, peace, peace. Today we are celebrating the birthday of Sri Krishna. Traditionally, the first lecture of the season is devoted to Sri Krishna. Just as the last lecture before the summer recess is devoted to Swami Vivekananda, so this is our tradition. And there's a reason for it, because the official birthday of Sri Krishna, Janmashtami, usually comes not too long before our first lecture. So the title, though, today is Sri Krishna is revealed in the Bhagavad Gita. The Gita is one of the basic sources of our philosophy, or the philosophy of Hinduism, philosophy of Vedanta. The official source is the Upanishads. The Upanishads being much more ancient and are considered much more authoritative. They have been tried and tested for thousands of years, and they have been found to be always true and to give the needed guidance for our life. And the Bhagavad Gita is considered probably as the best, or you could say the earliest, the most thorough commentary on the Upanishads. And it features Sri Krishna, it features all aspects really of the spiritual life. This is one of the great contributions of the Gita, that the different paths of spirituality, towards spirituality, are all mentioned and are discussed, and advice is given. The basic four paths are there. Jnana Yoga, the path of understanding, of philosophy, of examination, of the path devoted to the basic understanding of the groundwork of spirituality, not just Vedanta. It's just because Vedanta is actually, it has made a specialty of studying religion in its essence. What is the religious impulse, no matter how it manifests itself? In the world, it manifests in so many different ways. But what is that which is common to all these ways? What is the foundation, the underpinning of the spiritual impulse itself? That is the study of Vedanta. And the Bhagavad Gita devotes itself to a discussion of all the different paths, which Swami Vivekananda summarized as four: devotion, path of devotion, the path of spiritual inquiry, the path of meditation, and the path of work. or how to achieve, how to realize our potential through all these different paths. And the basic idea in all of them is that the realization of God is the only purpose of human life. We have many intermediate purposes. We have our families, our obligations, our historical needs and requirements, the legal requirements, so many things with so many obligations are on us. As soon as we are old enough to understand them, our parents put a lot of effort into making sure that we are properly equipped for the challenges of life. And also as part of that is to equip us in a spiritual way to reach the reason, the basic foundation of existence itself. Not just how to make existence successful in this world, but also what is the basic purpose of it? Why are we here? We don't remember having asked to come here. We just one day wake up and we find we're here. So the question naturally arises, what am I supposed to do here? What is to be accomplished in this life? And religion is the most fundamental study in that regard because it studies the very foundations. And the Gita is sort of a compendium, a summary of that. In 700 verses, Sri Krishna has touched upon all the different aspects of human yearning and human needs, human behavior, and human possibilities. But the scene is set on a battlefield, and all of that, of course, you could say, well, this is a very nice plot. Maybe they thought that this would be the best place to have to create a document that would be of interest to everyone at all times. So they set the scene on the battlefield. But it's the battlefield of life. In particular, it's chosen as this particular battlefield in ancient times in India when two clans were disputing with each other over the dominion of India. And in the conflict which ensued, just before the conflict, Sri Krishna gives this remarkable sermon. You can imagine this. These were not small armies. They were not just little groups that were gathered together for some sort of a tussle. These were hundreds of thousands of people that were gathered together on this battlefield to settle what, of course, every war tries to settle. Once and for all, we will solve this problem. And it never happens because the problem always surfaces because the basic reason for the problem has not been tackled. But nevertheless, this is how we do things in this world, and so this is how we live in this world. We live by conflict and competition. That is a great part of it. We try to improve upon that, but a great part of it remains that way, conflict and competition. So how do we approach that? And so I wanted to go through some of the things, some of the salient ideas of these chapters, and what it is that we can learn from this, what the profundity of the teaching here. And the scene of on the battlefield, these two clans They were related. They are actually cousins, and they have one group is cast as the perpetrators, as the instigators, and the other group are the instigatees. They're the ones against whom the instigation is carried out. And there's a long history about what one group did to the other, and the net result is that they have arrived on this battlefield ready to fight it out because they could not manage to agree on anything, literally nothing, not as much as could be put on the point of a needle. These were cousins who had, the elders had the right to the throne, and they were cheated out of it in a manner that is, is part of the history of it. But anyway, they were told that they had to live in exile for a certain number of years. Hopefully, they would somehow disappear from the scene. But they did not. They lived through the exile, and they returned to claim their throne, their right to the throne. They were refused. Not only refused, but they were attempted murder and attempted all sorts of evil things were attempted against them. And then there was a general inclination among all the various members of the clans that this could not be tolerated, that they would have to fight it out. So, but even at that moment, they tried to make peace, try to resolve the conflict in some way, and the aggrieved brothers said, all right, you can keep the kingdom as a whole, but give us just 5 villages, 1 village for each one of the 5 brothers, and then we will be satisfied with that. You keep the rest of the kingdom. And the answer was, not as much land as can be put on the point of a needle will you get. Well, that's pretty specific. So that kind of set the tone for what was going to happen. But in the process, as I was saying, murder was attempted, and dishonor was attempted, insults, and the wife was grievously insulted in public, and all these things. I mean, from the highest to the lowest, all sorts of things were attempted. These, especially the leaders of the opposition party, they qualified for something that is called an atatayin. Atatayin is, in those days, was defined as a person who does all sorts of evil things, just tries to commit murder and all sorts of other sins. And when such people take power and are uncontrolled, then it is considered to be justified to take up arms and try to, since nothing else has succeeded, to try to control the situation by arms. Of course, we've had this sort of thing in the world also. We've had in the 20th century, we've had a large number of these people. There was Hitler in Germany and Stalin in Russia, and all these people, they surface from time to time as, one could say, the very incarnation of evil. And the question is, what should be done about it? And of course, some people will hold it doesn't matter what it is, let there be peace at any price. And this is what Chamberlain tried he was the British Prime Minister. But it didn't work either, because the evil that he said there will be peace in our time, that the evil was going to be by appeasing it in that way, it was going to solve the problem, but it didn't, because invasion continued. Innocent peoples were continued to be conquered and imprisoned and killed. So in those days they were faced with the same problem. And of course some people might say it doesn't matter what, peace at any cost. But that is not Sri Krishna's view. And the view is based upon a very sound spiritual foundation. Namely, that which appears on the surface, that which is the cause of action or is the result of action, these are all waves that flow back and forth on a huge ocean, the huge ocean of existence. And that this ocean itself is infinitely deep. If you imagine the Pacific Ocean, there are areas in the Pacific, apparently the Marianas Trench or something like that. There are areas, in any case, that are like 35,000 feet deep. The highest mountain is Mount Everest, which is just short of 30,000. The depths in the ocean are deeper than that. So if you imagine an ocean 35,000 feet deep, and you're sailing on that ocean, and you're terribly disturbed by huge waves on the surface, 100-foot high waves. I've been on the North Atlantic in a ship and in a huge storm, and there were waves that were higher than all the decks on the ship. I mean, that's very impressive. The whole thing shakes, and it's like it's going to sink to the bottom of the ocean, and furthermore, you tend to be so seasick, you don't really care if you reach shore or not. That's one of the glories of ocean travel in the old days. Now, of course, they have these fins and stabilizers and all that, and everything is just smooth as glass. Oh yes, ocean travel is so wonderful. But it was not so in those days. But if you imagine such an ocean, if you're standing on the surface, these 100-foot high waves crashing over the ship, threatening to capsize it, that is a very serious problem for us. No doubt, you have to do something about it. But if you look at the depth of the ocean, 35,000 feet, what is a wave that's 200 or 300 feet high? It's nothing. I mean, if you go up into an airplane at 40,000 feet, you probably don't even see the waves at all. They may be 100 feet high, but from that elevation, you don't even know it. So it's a matter of perspective. What seems to us crucial and absolutely deadly and troubling in the extreme, from another standpoint, is just a little, almost unnoticeable perturbation on a very calm sea. So we have to judge our life in general on a large, in particular for the everyday life, we pay attention to these waves. And we try to manage to do the best to survive them. But in a philosophical or spiritual, from that point of view, it is nothing. So from that point of view, we have to look from a deeper perspective. And the question is, what is that deeper perspective? What does it look like? What it looks like is that this is the conclusion of the Upanishads, this is reiterated again in the Bhagavad Gita, that there is one reality here, and that reality is infinite and eternal. That reality is our very own nature. That is the essence of everything. And those things that are seen on the surface are small perturbations on that. And really not even that. The perturbations themselves are that same entity as the thing in itself. So it's not only that, and that entity is consciousness, Satchit Ananda, it is consciousness, it is knowledge, and it is joy. The essence of everything, no matter the worst and the best, is made up of that. There are not two things here. There is one reality here. It is consciousness. That is, it is all awareness. And it is all joy. It is all bliss. So this is the conclusion. And in that setting, we have to start looking at the Bhagavad Gita. And it begins by asking, you see, they had come, these people had come to this battlefield fully assembled to have it out, fully assembled to undertake this, this fight which would determine which one would survive. Actually, when you went to the end of the war, most of both sides were gone. There were very few people left. But that was not the point. Was how do they live? How do people live? And what happens to people when they die? That's another idea. That this life is only one phase of an eternal existence that we have had. What we see, we think of ourselves as being alive, and then we're dead. And we think that we're dead. That means extinction. That means this was our one chance and we have flubbed it. We have missed it. But that's not the idea. There is that thing which we identify ourselves with is a very temporary thing. We identify ourselves with the body. We identify ourselves with our minds. We identify ourselves with our surroundings, with our friends, with our relatives, with all sorts of finite things. And all of those things pass away. So we think we're also dead. And that's what makes our clinging to life, or clinging to make sure that everything is taken care of in a limited way. We don't want a wholesale solution. We feel we have no control over the whole. We want to have each little part of it absolutely perfect. Because we think each part of it is going to pass away, and we want to make it as perfect as we can, so hopefully it does not pass away. But that is a very limited point of view. The whole thrust of religion is to try to elevate us from a consideration of the limited and the finite, which is the only thing that we're really concerned with if we look at ourselves honestly. We're only concerned with things which are limited and finite because we don't know anything else. And so it's quite reasonable, it should be like that. But the whole thrust of religion is to tell us that that's not the only thing. That's not even the most important thing. Our attention should go away from that. We give us as much attention as we need in order to keep things as stable as they can be here. But the main thrust of our interest should be towards something else, which normally we don't want to think about or don't know how to think about. And that is that which is infinite and eternal. Our finite life is a tiny drop. It's like that 100-foot wave, which seems so momentous. But it's a tiny little drop in an infinite ocean of existence. In that infinite ocean of existence, that 100-foot wave is not even seen, not even noticed. Our interest is only on the finite and on the temporary, and that is the problem. The finite and the temporary is supported by the infinite and the eternal, and we totally ignore that. Because we say we have no evidence of it, we don't know about it, so we don't even bother looking for it anymore. But that is where the problem really lies. That which is infinite and eternal is our nature. If we are ever able to identify with that, to find reality in that, and that should be our striving, that should be our effort. And if we're ever able to touch that a little bit, or to acquire that, a little bit of that realization, knowledge, experience, or even in a theoretical way, if we're able to conceive of the infinite and the eternal as being the background of everything that's finite and changeable, if we're able to conceive of that, the whole picture entirely changes. Because then it's quite clear that that which is finite and changeable is put into perspective. Yes, it's important, you have to do something about it, you have to take care of it, there are rules and regulations, there are all sorts of obligations in regard to the finite and the temporary. But the essence is the infinite and the eternal, and that's inside each one of us. Inside each one of us, if you ask yourself, who am I? What is my real nature? Nobody thinks of this body as being really the essence of our being. Because we know this has been changing. We were children, we were adolescents, we have grown up, we get old, and eventually we know we're going to disappear. So we know that that's not, but the trouble is we don't know there's anything else. So the struggle should be to realize that which is the foundation or the background on which the finite is built, on which the edifice of the finite, which is so complicated, is raised. But that edifice of the finite that we raise up in our own lives and in our society, all of that just disappears as a puff of smoke when viewed against the immensity of the infinite. So, Sri Krishna, from that standpoint, he advises Arjuna accordingly. And the program, the process starts when Arjuna, who has been full of energy and fight and enthusiasm, and we're going to get those people and we're going to straighten this thing out, and we have tried everything else, there's nothing else has worked, this time we're going to have it out here on this battlefield. And of course they blow their trumpets. They had those days, they had trumpets to announce, each division had a trumpet and each division had a flag. Of course we still have flags. I don't think we have trumpets anymore. But so each side was asserting its energy and its power. And so Arjuna, Krishna had become the charioteer of Arjuna. This is, for a few seconds, I can tell you the interesting part of the story is both sides of this conflict wanted to get Sri Krishna's help, because he was considered as the source of wisdom, the source of help, source of hope. And though he didn't have the biggest army physically, but the fact that he was considered the very essence of rectitude, of inspiration, of wisdom. So both sides, Arjuna and his the opposite number, Duryodhana, went to see Sri Krishna. And Sri Krishna, they wanted his help. So Sri Krishna said, well, you have both come, but I give you this choice. You can either have me on your side, or you can have my army, but not both. So Arjuna, knowing the greatness of Sri Krishna, chose Sri Krishna said, no, you keep your army. Duryodhana was overjoyed at this because he wanted the army. So, but Sri Krishna said that he would serve. He would not fight, he would only serve as the charioteer. So, here's the big battle, and Arjuna asks Sri Krishna, this is the fateful moment, you could say. I'll say some of this in Sanskrit because it's so musical and so beautiful. Arjuna uvacha senayor upayor madhye ratham stapaya mechyuta. So, take my chariot, O Krishna. Achyuta means that a person who cannot be unfallen or undestroyable. O Krishna, take my chariot and place it between the two armies, so that he wanted to see, who is it that I'm going to have to fight? He was coming there full of fight and ready with all his weapons, and so in great pride he says, place my chariot between these two armies and let us see who it is that dares to face us. So he did that, but that was a fateful moment. He didn't realize that, because at that point he actually for the first time looked at the opponents, the army he was going to face. And what did he see? He saw in both armies, he saw many relatives, grandfathers, fathers-in-law, uncles, brothers, cousins, his own and their sons and grandsons and comrades, teachers and other friends as well. Then he began to see now who it is that he was going to fight. It wasn't not an abstract enemy, in quotation marks, which an abstract enemy is easy to fight. But when the enemy contains your own people, then the thing takes on a different hue. So, seeing all these kinsmen and friends, he says, then he literally began to shake. My limbs fail me, my mouth is parched up, I shiver all over, and my hair stands on end. The bow, his mighty bow, Gandiva, from which he shoots arrows with unerring skill, is slipping from my hand, my skin burns. I cannot stand upright, my mind is in a whirl. Now then, he begins to see the consequences of all his actions. Now, it's important that we realize the seriousness of the situation, because this is our own life. It doesn't happen necessarily this way, that there are two armies and we have to go against our own kith and kin, literally in that way. Sometimes something like that happens. But then he says, of what avail is dominion to us? Of what avail are pleasures and even life, if these, for whose sake these things are desired, if we have to kill all these? Then he says, even if they were to come and kill me, they're ready to fight me, they're ready to kill me. Even if they were to kill me, not even for the sake of dominion over all the three worlds, much less for the dominion over the earth would I wish to kill them. So you have to picture in your mind this situation. Of course, our situation normally when we have problems is not dreadful like that, fortunately, but it has its own dread, and sometimes it is very, very dreadful indeed. So, what is it? What would Arjuna? What would Sri Krishna's answer? And Arjuna raises many other arguments. Not only this, how could we gain happiness by the slaying of our own kinsmen? Though these, with their understanding overpowered by greed, though these who are against us see no evil in the decay of families, and no sin in hostility to friends, why should we, who clearly see this, why should we not turn away from this? So then Arjuna goes on with many arguments. Eventually, he says, even if they all come, weapons in hand, and slay me, if they kill me, unresisting and unarmed in the battle, that would be better. Alas, we are involved in a great sin in that we are prepared to slay our kinsmen out of greed for the pleasure of the kingdom. Like that, it goes on. And having done this, Arjuna sank down on his chariot and said, with everything, he completely overpowered by this tremendous commiseration for what is about to happen for his kinsmen. So what is Sri Krishna's answer to this? Kutastva kashmalamidam vishame samupastitam. In such a crisis, whence comes upon you, O Arjuna, this dejection, un-arya-like, that means ignoble dejection, disgraceful and contrary to the attainment of heaven. Klaibyamma smagamach partha. Do not yield to unmanliness, O son of Pritha. Naitattvai upapadyate. This does not become you. Kshudram hridaya darbalyam tyaktvo tishta parantapa. Yield not to unmanliness, O son of Pritha. Ill doth it become thee. Cast off this mean faint-heartedness and arise, O scorcher of thine enemies. They used to call each other by names like that. Scorcher of my enemies and so forth. But when it actually is, you're standing there having to scorch enemies, the situation becomes totally different. Then the idea takes on a different hue. But though Sri Krishna pours his scorn upon Arjuna in this vehement way, Arjuna is not cowed by this. Katham bhishmamaham sankhye dronancha madhusudana ishubhih pratiyotsyami pujarhav arisudana. How can I, in battle, O Krishna, fight with arrows against Bhishma and Drona, who are his... Bhishma is his grandsire, actually the dean of the whole clan of both sides, and Drona, who is his teacher. How can I fight with arrows against them who are rather worthy to be worshipped? And then he goes on and he continues his arguments against the process, and finally he says, Nayotsya iti govindam. I will not fight, O Govinda. Now this word, his use of the word Govindam is a very sweet touch, a touch of honey in this whole horrendous dialogue between the two. Nayotsya iti Govindam. I will not fight. O Govinda. Govinda is a sweet name of Krishna. Krishna is you could say, the herder of cows, or, it goes back to the early history of Krishna in the groves of Vrindavan before he became assumed the throne and became the leader of armies. So he's appealing to him, Nayotsya iti Govindam, I will not fight, O Govinda. Oh Krishna, do not force me to fight. That is it. I cannot stand this. I cannot bear this. This is too much, he says in a very endearing way. Then what is Krishna's answer? Tamuvacha Rishikeshaha Prahasanniva Bharata. So Rishikesh, that means Arjuna, having said that, Prahasanniva Bharata, that means Bharata is the name of one of the names of Krishna, because they are from the Bharata clan. Tamuvacha Rishikeshaha Prahasanniva Bharata. So he is Sri Krishna answers Arjuna. Prahasan Iva. Iva means as if, prahasan, as if smiling. Now here's this, you can picture this horrendous scene. Mighty army with horrendous carnage in prospect. Arjuna objecting, Arjuna sinking down in dejection and asking for Sri Krishna's help. How am I going to solve this dilemma? And Krishna is smiling, as though smiling. He answers him. Now, why would he smile? That has been one of the questions. Why would Sri Krishna smile at this point? One of the answers is that he is smiling because he knows that the Arjuna's delusion is something which is a delusion indeed. It's based upon a false understanding. And it is something that's going to be cleared up very soon. He knows that with the words that he is going to utter, that delusion will vanish and a clear sky of understanding will prevail. So he's smiling in anticipation. To whom? To Arjuna, Vishidantamidam Vachaha. He tells him this word. He says to him the following words. And what are these words? What is it? You can imagine, in your mind, you can see this scene, this tremendous scene of conflict and this scene of desperation, this scene of extreme emotions that is surging through Arjuna, and Sri Krishna answers it smiling, knowing that it's just the passing cloud. And once the cloud is passed, what is it going to reveal? It's going to reveal the reality that these are just clouds, and that the blue sky is undisturbed, ever the same, ever the foundation, the reality of everything. That no matter how, the lesson is that no matter how horrible things get in this world, the essence of reality is not in the least affected by any of it. The truth of our own nature, the truth of the infinity of the infinite reality of our own existence is a truth right now, this very moment, this very second. We are the infinite and the eternal. we are not what appears on the surface. Arjuna is standing in this battlefield with literally hundreds of thousands. These were not small groups of people. These were a number of hundreds of thousands of soldiers and chariots, and it was a very huge thing. It was essentially the whole of the India of those days was involved in this conflict. Even that is just the cloud that will pass away, that will pass over the surface. So in our own life, no matter how serious the situation appears, no matter how dreadful, no matter how fraught with unbelievable calamity and disastrous possibilities, those are clouds. The infinite and the eternal of our own nature, the reality of our own being is totally unaffected by this. It has never even been touched in the slightest by all of this. So Sri Krishna, knowing this, and knowing that this delusion is temporary, and that when the wisdom of it will dawn, when he will actually experience it, not as words, but actually experience in his own life, all of this will seem like nothing, a passing cloud. And he starts with an explanation of Vedanta. Ashocyanan vasochastvam prajnavadanshabhashase gathasun agathasunscha nanusochanti panditaha. You have been mourning for those who should not be mourned for. You seem to speak words of wisdom, but the truly wise grieve neither for the living nor for the dead. Na tvevaham jatu nasam, na tvam neme janadhipaha, na chaiva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayamatah param. It is not that I have never existed, nor you, nor these kings of men, nor is it that we shall cease to exist in the future. And then he goes on. As our childhood, youth, and old age in this body, so also is the attaining of another body. Calm souls are not deluded by that. Notions of heat and cold, of pain and pleasure, are born, O son of Kunti, only of the contact of the senses with their objects. They have a beginning and an end. They are impermanent in their nature. Bear them patiently, O descendant of Bharata. That calm person who is the same in pain and pleasure, whom these cannot disturb, alone is able to attain to immortality. The unreal never is. Na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate sataha. Ubhayor api drishtontas tvam asayos asadarshibhihi. So the unreal never is, the real never is not. Those who are possessed of the knowledge of truth fully know both of these. The unreal never is. The real never ceases to be. That is the source, that is the essence of the position. The unreal never is, the real never ceases to be. That by which all this is pervaded, know that to be indestructible. No one has the power to destroy this immutable reality. So in this sense, this way, Sri Krishna teaches him, first of all, the basic truths of existence. What is real and what is unreal. There are four procedure of 4 parts is enumerated for understanding and experiencing this reality. It's first of all, the discrimination between the real and the unreal. This is what Sri Krishna is teaching Arjuna now. And Adao Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka, the discrimination between that which is real and that which is permanent and that which is temporary. That's the first step. Then there are other conditions. But the first step in spirituality is to start with this idea. What is it that is real and what is it that is passing and temporary? And that which is passing and temporary is not to be mixed up. The basic error is mixing up that which is temporary with that which is permanent. Like that. So first of all, he teaches the basic truths of existence. That's the beginning. The next step that Sri Krishna does in his teaching of Arjuna is to teach him the wisdom of Swadharma, that there are certain, for everyone finding himself or herself in a certain position in life, there's a certain behavior that is helpful in manifesting their own infinite nature, their own reality. And there's another behavior which is opposed to that. So dharma is that which is going to lead us to the highest realization, and adharma is that which is going to lead us away. So the knowledge of that which is wisdom, that which is going to lead us to that reality and that which is going to lead us away from it, that is the next thing that Sri Krishna teaches him. Even from a worldly standpoint, he says, you should not abandon this field of action because you've done everything to get to this point. You have tried everything constructive that can be done to avoid this issue, and it's taking place anyhow, so you have to fulfill your role. So fulfilling our role in this world, that's the next set of teachings. Then after that, he goes on, and this is the whole book is a series of teachings of different methods of realization or attaining toward that realization. And then the next step is the wisdom of yoga, the wisdom of karma yoga, how to act in this world, how to act in such a way that one attains toward this realization. And in that process, he makes certain very interesting statements. For one thing, the role of the scriptures, this is one of the scriptures, but the role of the scriptures has to be explained. The scriptures themselves are just like a list. If you have a shopping list, you have to buy certain things. Once you buy those things, you can throw the list away. So once you've understood the meaning of what has to be done, then the instructions themselves are put aside and you start trying to carry them out. One verse, for instance, is to one who has known the self, that is the inner reality, all the Vedas are of as much use as a reservoir is when there's a flood everywhere else. So the reservoir is what conserves your water for the time when you need it. But when the rains come in torrents and wash away even everything in their path, what is the use of this reservoir? So the Vedas are like the shopping list you have. Once you have bought what you need, you throw the shopping list away. Once you've followed the instructions, the essence, you've gotten the essence. Now, there's also another verse here which is very famous and which requires some explanation. Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. Karma, your right is for work only, but not to the fruits thereof. Then he goes on, do not be the producer of the fruits of actions. On the other hand, do not be attached to inaction. So this seems like an almost impossible prediction. A suggestion. You are not karma neva adhikara. Your competence, your adhikara, is toward karma only. In other words, you have the right to work. Work is something in our nature. Everything that we do is work. Even breathing is work. But our whole life is centered on work, and we have a right to that. But we do not have the right to the fruits of it. Then the question arises, if you don't have the right to the fruits of actions, why would we do anything at all? The answer is that if you desire the results of the fruits of action, you become the agent for acquiring these results. And then you become the cause for the production of these results. And that loses your status of freedom, because if you're the cause for the production of results, the effects will also come to you. So if you don't admit to being the cause of the action, the results may head your way, but you will be able to deflect them because you're not identified with it. The source, the theory behind this is non-attachment. In other words, you are the infinite and the eternal. That is our very nature. We don't need any of this. We don't really, in our basic nature, we don't need work. We don't need the results of work. We just, at this point, while we are in this world under these conditions for certain limited purposes, we do certain things and we feel an obligation like that. But that should be only at the surface of things. Inside, we should be standing on the infinite and eternal nature of our own reality, so that we're not attached to them. The whole point is attachment. The great teaching, if you wanted to say one particular teaching that the Gita definitely emphasizes, it's non-attachment. You do everything that needs to be done. You take part in this battle since it has been laid out that way. And this has become an inevitable necessity. You take part in that, but you're seeing yourself as an instrument. Nimittam bhava. Be an instrument only. But always we have to remember who we are, what our basic nature is. Our basic nature is the inner divinity that is our reality. We are not this body, we are not this mind. What are we then? We are that all-pervading divinity. The all-pervading reality is our nature. That is the basic teaching. So the work that we do, we don't need the results. It says, karma nyeva adhikarasti ma phaleshu kadachana, but we have no right, we have no adhikara. We have no right for the fruits. Why don't we have right for the fruits of action? I've worked for it, I should have it. The point is, you work for it, in a certain limited sense you may need it. You need food to live, you need so many things in this world, but it's not the essential you. On the surface, the body needs certain things, the mind needs certain things. These are ways we deal with our participation in this world. But actually, deep down inside, we must always be based on what our real nature nature is. And our real nature is a divine reality. It is God seated in our own hearts. It is the Spirit. It is however you want to phrase it. Our real nature is that. And our real attention should be that. And for a temporary purpose and a temporary need, we do work for certain things and we do get the results. But the results come only to the body and the mind, but not to the we inside. That inner reality never is affected by anything. That is what we have to aim to understand, to realize, to appreciate. How do we know such an inner reality exists? That we understand by spiritual practice, by meditation. First of all, we understand it by shravana, by hearing about it. In the beginning, nobody knows these things to be true. In the beginning, you wake up in this world, you think all of this is real, and you take part in it, and then you get terribly disappointed because some things don't work out. You get terribly distressed because you get defeated in certain ways. You get terribly elated because you become successful in so many ways. Both of these are wrong. Both of these are wrong and they're unnecessary. The truth of the matter is that inner reality which we have to understand, which we have to which we have to struggle to get to, which we have to realize, is not affected by any of these things. We don't need anything. We don't need action. We don't need the results. This whole world could crumble around our ears, and it would just be as though we're waking up from a dream. In a dream, you see all sorts of things, and you feel terribly afraid and terribly concerned about many things. But the next morning you wake up and you laugh at it. Oh, that was just a dream. Now they compare this existence also to that, to a person who has in one of the factors, one of the verses here in the Gita. Yavan artha udapane sarvatah samplutodake. That means as a reservoir of water is useful only when everything is dry, but becomes totally useless when the land is inundated, so in the same sense are these scriptures, these prescriptions are necessary as long as we are in a dry season, trying to reach the reality, trying to reach our inner self. But once our inner consciousness has begun to, even in the slightest, feel a sense, yes, there is something deeper than the surface. Once a little touch of that comes, even a tiny little touch, you begin to realize that there is something there. There is something there. Sri Ramakrishna compared it to, if you're digging for something, you're digging for, there's something buried, something precious buried underneath, and you dig for it. Your spade just hits, or your pick just hits dirt, and it just seems like you're digging forever. Suddenly your pick hits something that with a hollow sound. Then you know, there is something there. Then your enthusiasm grows enormously, and you begin to really start digging because you know there's something down there. Like that, if we get a little touch of something that tells us, yes, there is something more than what seems on the surface, our enthusiasm will be enormously increased, and we'll become fully appreciative of what's being said here, of what these scriptures are trying to say. Anyway, the Gita has so many things in it. It's tremendous ideas are there, tremendous prescriptions are there, all for the purpose of trying to reach our real nature. There is one chapter which, interestingly enough, is chapter 11. Chapter 11, in a business sense, is considered rather unauspicious. But this chapter 11 shows Sri Krishna as the universal reality behind everything, behind the good, behind the bad, behind the gentle and kind, behind the vicious. The reality behind everything is really God. And you say, well, why should we, why the vicious? Why does the Divine Mother have forms which are considered to be violent forms? Divine Mother with a sword in hand and chopping off heads and all that. What is the meaning of all of that? These are all issues that are raised. The point is that everything that appears in this world, from the very best to the most horrible, is part of the waves on the surface of this ocean. As long as you look at the waves, you see they're terrible. When you look at them as water, you see the infinite reality of the ocean. Then the fact that this is a huge wave that could come crashing on the beach and do damage there doesn't appear. What is in your mind then is the glory of the water, that water can assume these forms. Water can be 35,000 feet deep. In other words, once you begin to see a divine reality underneath, a divine essence to things, or even when you don't see it but you begin to suspect its existence, that's enough. That's the beginning, that's the start. Just to suspect the reality of God, that's all you need. Just to say, yes, I'm willing to concede that as a possibility. And then look within yourself and at a quiet moment see if there isn't within you something precious and something that seems eternal, seems unaffected by anything on the surface, that infinite reality. It's within each one of us. It's our heart, it's our essence. There really is nothing else. And the thing is, if you look around, even at material objects, what is the essence of material object? The fact that this roof is there, the fact that this building is there. The first thing before I can see this building, before I can see this roof, before I can see any particular thing, I have to see my own inner reality, my own consciousness. First, there is my consciousness. Then, there is what I'm conscious of. Oh, I'm conscious of this roof. I'm conscious of this building. But the first thing before all of that is consciousness. That is my own eternal, there cannot be any end to it. There's no agent. Everything is within that consciousness. Even my dying is in that consciousness. The consciousness itself does not die. But within that consciousness, I can die. So it is consciousness which is even anterior to life, even foundational to life itself. And that is within all of us. That has to be there, otherwise we would not be conscious of anything else, if consciousness were not there to begin with. So that infinite reality is within our grasp every moment. Without it, nothing else would be in our grasp. That God's presence in us is first. Everything else is there because that is there. And so we could go on forever. Thank you. The subject for next Sunday is the legacy of Vivekananda's historic Chicago address. This talk will be given by Swami Tattva-Mayananda. Childcare is provided during our Sunday lectures. On Wednesday evenings from 7:30 until 8:15, we have Vespers in this auditorium, which consist of devotional singing and worship and are followed by meditation. On Friday evenings, Swami Tattva-Mayananda holds a scripture class in Vivekananda Hall at 7:30 p.m. The current topic for study is Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. On Sundays, all are welcome to use the library from 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. You and your friends are cordially invited to attend all of our services. As usual, after the lecture, there will be a question and answer session in Vivekananda Hall, and all are welcome. Om Dyahu Shanti Antariksham Shanti Prithivi Shanti Apo Shanti Roshadaya Shanti Vanaspataya Shanti Vishwe Deva Shanti Brahma Shanti Sarvam Shanti Shantireva Shanti Same Shantiredhi Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, peace is in heaven, peace is in the sky, on the earth, and in the waters. The herbs, the plants, and the trees are full of peace. The gods are peaceful. Everything in the universe is pervaded by peace. May that infinite, universal peace enter our soul and being. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all.